the scrutinizing minds and eyes of psychologists. One of the things that has emerged is that Trump loves Putin is strong. He comes out as strong, he's resolute, he has resolve, he's not easily intimidated, if intimidated at all. And I think that is a side of President Putin that Trump... But then there is realpolitik which tells him that, you see, Russia and the United States of America are in competition. And you are in competition because the United States of America wants to be the hegemon in the whole world. Russia is also not keeping quiet. We see Russia also negotiating for military bases. We see Russian companies entering into different parts of the world. If it is not in Africa, it is in Asia, and therefore you are in competition. And I think that his foreign policy advisors are therefore telling him that as far as that is concerned, you cannot give concessions, because if Russia is great, America cannot be great again. So in that context, you can see the conflict and the confusing diplomacy that appears to govern the relationship between the United States of America and Russia. But because he does not want to cut the umbilical cord, if it exists, between Russia and the United States of America, there are many areas of collaboration. In the space, they are still collaborating. In areas where he thinks that Russia should have an interest, he still wants to see them as part of this big mega process in Gaza. So he wants Russia to be present there. But he also is doing that because, in my view, he wants to be seen the major domo, the dominant power. I'm the one who invites people. Even the great Putin, I'm the one who is inviting him. And therefore, when I invite people, I'm the owner of all that is happening in the world. So one must see this apparently conflicting diplomacy as one that is informed on the one hand by, I think, genuine love and admiration for President Putin, because he cannot be. FIFA is compelled to create a special peace prize and to hand over the peace prize to him, and he receives them. So that when one is thinking about Donald Trump, he defies narrow and strict definitions as to how he thinks. He thinks he's the Alpha and Omega. He thinks, one may say, he's larger than life, almost as large as death. He thinks that he's the one who ought to direct the world on what the world ought to do. And if you had any doubt, when he was addressing the General Assembly of the United Nations in September of 2025, he said the United Nations is useless. America must become great again. America operates outside of it. In his world, Donald J. Trump is the Alpha and Omega. In his world, Donald J. Trump is omnipotent, is omniscient, is infallible. Donald J. Trump, in a manner of speaking and speaking hyperbolically, is the Roman Catholic Pope and the King of England wrapped into one. It is something that I believe the world has not seen, and if it did, it was a long, long time ago. That is Donald J. Trump that we are dealing with during this period, and that is why he thinks that he can solve the world. When there is a problem in Gaza, he appoints peace board and appoints heads of state of different countries to be part of that peace board, which he chairs. When there is a conflict about the dam in Ethiopia, he writes to President Sisi and Prime Minister Abiy and says, I'll be the one who is going to solve it. I'll be the one who is going to solve the problems of the Caribbean, the problems of Asia, so that he is this God's gift in his scheme of things, who must be present everywhere, because it is him who can control and direct the world. And in that way, then America is great again. And you can see the rhetoric. We have the best military in the world. We went into Iraq and took out their nuclear facilities in a manner that only the United States of America can do. We went into Caracas and took out Maduro in the only way America can do. And if you listen to those who are working under him, I think their tails will be between their legs. On the question of Greenland, there are several scenarios, and I want to imagine that when Trump is sitting with these advisors in the Oval Office, these are the scenarios that they build. Scenario number one, and the best case scenario, let them sell Greenland to us. Scenario number two, let them lease Greenland to us for an unlimited period of time. Scenario number three, we enter into a long-term negotiation with them that saves their face, but is essentially a sale of Greenland to the United States of America. Scenario number 4, we simply go there with our military. We may not say it is a takeover, but we are there and in effective control. Scenario number 5, we simply take it over and see what they can do. I think, the scenario building that is going to play out and that is playing out, and that our scenarios, if presented to the government in Copenhagen, they'll be very realistic. They'll now not make looks about by the United States of America as regards the takeover of Greenland gives birth to a number of very dangerous scenarios and possibilities. Perhaps dangerous is not the word, but possibilities. That international relationship is governed by the law of the jungle, and that might is right. That if you have military power, then you cannot be controlled, and that therefore, if you think that your security is threatened, then you can go and grab any country. If the United States of America succeeds with the message that they will be sending to other strong military powers in order to secure your interests, both domestically and abroad in the territorial sea and in the high seas, the only thing that you ought to have is military might. The Chinese will say, but our claim for Taiwan is beyond that. It is even a historical claim that it was part of us, that these were renegades and seized Taiwan. The Russians will say, we cannot afford the luxury of having any threats in our neighborhood. Therefore, we must seize Ukraine. We must seize Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. And India could also argue that Bangladesh is in our neighborhood. We feel threatened, therefore we must take Bangladesh. That argument and that kind of reasoning and approach can only create chaos. And the danger is that those arguments are coming at a time when the institutions that were created after the Second World War, namely the United Nations, is now at its weakest. And that many things are happening without the involvement of the United Nations, and many of its decisions can't be ignored, and its institutions have become weak. The International Court of Justice orders against Israel, they have been ignored. Warrants have been issued by the International Criminal Court, they have been ignored. So the Greenland scenario is creating something, if it will be called a precedent, which if followed by other countries in the league and under the philosophy of the Monroe Doctrine, then the world will go back to the days of colonization, so that strong powers will colonize weaker ones. And this time round, it may not even be actually moving in physically, but just military domination. And the institutions that we see that are still being used to dominate the world, like the IMF, like the World Bank, and of course even the World Trade Organization, are going to be reconfigured to deal with this new scenario that making America great is beginning to create. It is very interesting. Of course, we know that this presidency will only last for the next at the high. I wouldn't be surprised if there are arguments saying, you are God's gift to the United States of America. You are the 45th, you are the 47th, be the 48th. But remember that he turns 80 in the month of June, the year 2026. Biology also has its way of slowing people down. When you look at the goings on in the world, you see Africa once again is at the dinner table. There is actually crumble for Africa. There is actually something that is deja vu about the Berlin Conference, and you see it in different ways. The interests are different. The Chinese are present through infrastructure. The Russians are also trying to get in through energy negotiations. You see that in the Sahel. You see the British pretty much emphasizing on the organization called the Commonwealth. And I think you see more and more frequent entering into negotiations. You see the French getting even into countries that were not French colonies. In the year 2026, Kenya is scheduled to hold French-Africa meeting in Nairobi, Kenya. They are getting into those spaces. The Portuguese are not as active. And of course, the United States of America is present in almost every corner. What one therefore sees is that there is a scramble for Africa. And Africa, unfortunately, is not organized. You see, many African institutions are crumbling. The regional institutions such as the East African Community are just barking dogs, and they don't even bark loudly. ECOWAS is equally crumbling. SADC is crumbling. The Maghreb is not working as it should be. The Central Africa is not crumbling, is crumbling. The other organizations that were continental, such as IGAD, are weak by the day. COMESA is weak by the day. Such as NEPAD are becoming weaker and weaker. And you see African countries are increasingly going into bilateral relationship with European countries and even with other countries. That is why you see bilateral negotiations on health, bilateral negotiations on things such as AGOA, bilateral negotiations with different countries, and if they are unilateral, is European Union against Kenya, European Union against Eswatini, the United States and Eswatini. And all these are telling you that Africa is really food for everybody. Unfortunately, she's been lulled into a false sense of security. And once again, history is repeating itself. The mother continent is being eaten alive. Our resources are being taken. And in this age of AI, one can imagine how our industries will be controlled remotely and otherwise. If Africa does not organize herself, and she had better, she will be recolonized. And therefore, the urgent call for Africa, let us organize. At one time I said that there is only 3 meetings that Africa should hold in Addis Ababa with 3 separate agenda items. Meeting number 1, what is wrong with us? Meeting number 2, what can we do about what is wrong with us? And with meeting number 3, within what period? Africa must eliminate all borders, eliminate visas, begin to value add in her resources, begin to feed herself, and give practical meaning to Africa Agenda 2063 and Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and strengthen her relationship with friends of goodwill. If they do that, then Africa will begin to be recognized and consume what it produces. In the artificial intelligence space, Africa must begin to have things that it controls. It must begin to have industries. It must generate energy. It must use things that are going to liberate her. It must run away from the politics that creates conflict after every election, because without political stability, there is nothing that if Africa does not do those things, then Africa will be dominated, because an Africa that is conflict prone is an Africa that is easy to dominate and easy to exploit. This is the message that Africa must receive and implement. Otherwise, Africa will just remain in the domain in which she now finds herself, where our people only do one thing, praying and fasting, and expecting that God in a very majestic way will come and rescue her. That will not happen. Africans must rescue themselves by rolling up their sleeves and exploiting their resources and collaborating with friends of goodwill where there is mutual beneficiation. Anybody who thinks that Trump is a madman is mad himself. There is a method to his apparent madness. It is calculated. There is a sense in which, whether you like Trump or not, there has been consistency in the manner in which he executes his agenda. What we call his unpredictability is actually his predictability. Within a short period, Donald J. Trump has become, if you may, and if you are not careful about which words you use, the king of the United States of America. It is only the king who does things and is controlled by his morality, and not just any king, an absolute monarch. He's neutered Congress. He's neutered the United States judiciary. Everything is happening at his beck and call. He can call journalists and tell them, you are purveyors of fake news, and nothing happens to him. He can get the BBC to apologize for editing a clip, and he tells them, I'll sue you for billions. He is a king. You don't use that. He is an emperor, perhaps a king and emperor combined into one. That is who he has become. You only underestimate him and dismiss him at your own peril. One can say this hyperbolically. When Trump coughs, the world goes into a coma.